Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Tina and I'm the Capability Building Coordinator for Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand. Connecting Up is a part of the Info Exchange Group. Info Exchange is a not-for-profit social enterprise that has delivered technology for social justice for over 25 years. With over 100 staff across Australia and New Zealand, we tackle the biggest social challenges through the smart and creative use of technology. I'd like to welcome you all to the webinar, A Practical Introduction to Power BI, which will be presented by Marcus Harvey and Anne Nguyen from Info Exchange. We'll start with a little bit of housekeeping. All lines are muted, so if you have any technical issues, please type it into the questions box on your webinar panel and I'll be able to assist you through there. If you have any questions during the session, please also type it into the questions box and Marcus and Anne will answer them in the Q&A section at the end of the webinar. Please note that your comments and questions will not appear to the entire group. If you are on a Wi-Fi connection and have multiple programs open, this can sometimes affect the quality of the audio and video of the webinar. If possible, please close all other programs to help you have the best experience. Please note that the webinar is being recorded and a link to the recording and the slides will be sent to you shortly after the webinar ends. Before we start, I'd also like to remind you that there will be a short survey at the end of the webinar. We'd appreciate it if you took a few minutes to provide us with some feedback. That's all from me for now. I'll pass it over to Marcus and Anne to get things started.
Thanks, Tina. We're really excited to be here and talking to you about data. I've just put our video on for a second so you can see we're real people that are passionate about the non-profit sector. And we're really keen to share how you can use Power BI and how easy it is to get started. And so we're excited to talk you through that. In terms of what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about what's changing in the non-profit world. We're going to talk through some of the challenges, and we're also going to talk about and give you a practical demonstration as to how easy it is to get started with Power BI, because hopefully you'll see that anyone can do it. If you're familiar with Excel, you can get started with Power BI and start to understand and produce useful insights for your organisation to get the most of it. But the first thing I wanted just to touch on is the fact that the world is changing and data is a big part of that. And this is the same whether it's the non-profit sector or the commercial sector. We're seeing a tenfold increase in data being stored every 5 years, and 85% of that is from new data types. The whole concept of big data and understanding how things link and drawing insights is really changing the way organisations tell their story and understand the impact of their services. I thought this was a really nice quote, that organisations that build a modern information management system will outperform their peers financially by about 20%. And that's Mark's a Gartner analyst. So Gartner, if you haven't heard of them, are one of the top IT analysis and recommendation organisations. They're highly trusted. We certainly get a lot of insight from Gartner around where things are moving to and what and which software products and options are well fit for the market and how things are going to change in the future. So the more an organisation understands its data, the better the chance that it will be able to grow, thrive and have the biggest possible impact. And that's true not just from the perspective of commercial, but also is within the non-profit sector as well. The biggest thing and challenge for non-profit sector, and the reason I want to touch on this is because this is why we care about data and this is why we're passionate about it. Our sometimes friends, sometimes challenged government is always looking for ways to reduce spending or do more with less. And so that's putting a whole lot of pressure on the organisations that Info Exchange and Connecting Up and TechSoup work with to tell the story about how they're undertaking their services and what the outcomes are that they achieve. Funding is also shifting. What we're seeing is more and more, rather than funding in advance, organisations are receiving funding based on outcomes. And so in order to thrive in that environment, it's really important to make sure that your organisation gets the outcome it needs to from each of its different programs, so that it can thrive into the future. And the public is also expecting more with less. What we see in the social media space is that infographics that present both an emotional side, a picture with connection and caring or need, together with factual data, are those that have the biggest impact on action and a call to action. So data together with care and together with pictures are the two things that when you put those together, you can really harness the power of social media and your supporters in order to have a bigger impact in the world. And that creates a real need for effective use of data and digital technologies. And those organisations that we work with that are doing that well, we're seeing them grow year on year at a larger pace than those organisations that don't. Now, the big challenge from the perspective of the non-profit sector is that this isn't always easy. And hopefully today we'll give you a few key steps and some understanding about how you can get started down this journey. But when we analysed our non-profit tech survey, it's out now. If you haven't seen it, please give us your information so that we can share this again with hopefully a whole lot more than only sort of 385 respondents. But what we found was that data was a bit of a challenge for organisations, but in the non-profit sector. Last year, we found that 50% of organisations reported that their core system isn't capable of capturing information about client outcomes. And so that makes it really hard to report on that if you're not even capturing it to start with. A similar proportion of organisations reported they can't easily get information and reports from their systems to inform planning, improvements and reporting. So if you can't do that, it makes it very difficult to evolve your systems and take it forward into and refine your programs to have the biggest possible impact. About 45% of organisations reported that they didn't understand how outcomes vary over time or how they vary by client circumstances and situation. And that's a really important element because we sometimes get asked to work sort of in depth with organisations, and what we'll sometimes find when we do that is that particular regional areas or particular client groups have a much better success rate or vastly improved outcomes when compared to other types of clients. So, and understanding then why that's the case. You know, if it's single mothers, you know, with kids, you know, for a particular organisation, are having trouble in becoming homeless a second and a third time when we're trying to find stable housing for them. But we're doing really well with mums without kids. Understanding that difference in outcome is really critical to making sure that we can say, okay, so what's different about that client? How do we engage? How do we need to refine our program and our process to get a better outcome? So that insight around data and outcomes and how it varies by client circumstance or client demographic or region is critical to making sure that we really feel that every organisation fulfills its mission and has the biggest possible impact in the world. I did want to just show you a really quick dashboard that we've used with one of our clients. This is dummy data, but it's a real dashboard. And just to show you some of the types of things that are really easy to pull together. And Anne, later on in the webinar, is actually going to start to build these dashboards so that you can see how quick and easy this is, as well as do some slicing and dicing so that we can filter and understand details. But what you'll see here is that we've built something that shows the different sorts of cases that this organisation deals with. You can filter it up the top of the screen by year. You can also see that you've got counts on the left-hand side, total number of cases, total number of services, the number of hours, average hours per day, all those sorts of things, as well as total travel hours, as well as information around case type, gender, age range of the client, the household situation, the referral source in terms of where it's come from, the funding source, and what happens when the case was closed, or at each of the key stages, where the goals fully met, partially met, not reached, etc. And the nice thing that we did when we built this was that it was very easy to filter it down either for particular genders, particular referral sources, particular case types, or to drill into specific years and understand how those things changed year on year. So that's just a really quick example of this type of thing that's possible to build, to give you a sense as to what you can do with Power BI. And the important thing really from our perspective is understanding how your service varies, how your activities vary by client type, client situation, and by worker. And so that you can then understand better what's working well, what could be improved, and how you're going against that. So I do want to talk now a little bit about, apologies, I've just clicked on a link by mistake. I did want to talk now a little bit about Power BI and how that works. Because the nice thing about Power BI is that if you're familiar with Excel, you'll be familiar with how to get the basics out of Power BI. You can analyze data in Excel, and that's always useful at a point. But Power BI really allows you to take that to the next level and to enable you to share your insights with others within your organization. And what we're finding is that almost every organization we work with now, in excess of 97% of organizations that we're working with, are now using Office 365. And as part of the Office 365 suite, you can get started in Power BI with no cost. So there's the core Power BI free, which is actually fairly expensive if you're a commercial organization. Microsoft is making available at free of charge for non-profits. It's only if you need some of the extra features that you need to actually pay for it. So everything that you'll see Anne do today is available at no cost to organizations that have a non-profit Office 365 subscription. And what Power BI allows you to do is quickly and easily create collaborative sites. So that allows you to build a dashboard or build some analysis, and allows you to share that with others in your organization, so that you actually have one version of the truth across the organization. Rather than the old case where different people start to use Excel, you share that via email, then people do their own analysis, they delete some data items because they want to see a filter and they're not comfortable with filtering, and then all of a sudden people start coming up with different numbers, and they're all doing their own analysis rather than having someone do it and share it around the organization. So that ability to create collaborative Power BI sites and shared dashboards is really important to making sure that the organization knows how it's tracking against its service targets and understands how each of the different program areas and team leaders are tracking towards their outcome or activity targets as well. The other thing that's really nice from a Power BI perspective is you're able to schedule and manage the data queries for each of the teams. So that means that you can set up different views for different teams within the organisation and manage that centrally, so that each team can actually see what's important to them without having to build separate views and reports or distribute that. The data refresh process is fantastic from the perspective of you can schedule the refresh of data sets on a regular basis, so that as information changes in your source system, whether you've got a client and case management system that all the information is, whether you've got an Excel workbook that you maintain your service targets in, or whether or not you've got an SQL database that you're using and you then need to integrate that, but you can schedule that information refresh so that it's kept up to date without someone having to manually import or reanalyze data. The public catalog's really nice. We don't go into this much today, but for organizations that are further down the maturity curve, what you can allow is managers to start to run their own queries so that they can understand, if I want to link in the CIFA data set from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, or I want to start to understand some different elements of the services that are being delivered, they can search for that in a data catalog and then start to build that within their query set without requiring central experts to do that. Obviously, one of the nice things about Power BI is it's part of the Office 365 suite. That means you've got mobile access to your reports, whether that's on a tablet, whether that's on an iPad, or whether that's on a laptop or a desktop computer, which means that wherever you are, if you've got an internet connection, you can work and see information in real time. The other thing that we're not talking much about today, but we're seeing this evolve significantly, is that you can also ask questions of your data in natural language. So the little example on the screen is show me the medal count for France and China is a bar chart. So that's a natural language that bang, it goes and queries the data, and then it produces the bar chart sorted by country. So particularly for those line managers that are keen to start to understand their data more, but they're not comfortable with the more sophisticated elements of slicing and dicing and producing those charts, there are those natural languages interfaces as well. I'm going to hand over to Anne now, who's going to talk about some of the key Power BI components. Then she's going to walk you through a demonstration where we load up a simple Excel sheet and start some Power BI charts and graphs, and then we're going to walk into a more sophisticated one, which is still fairly easy to create, and show you what's possible there as well. So Anne, would you mind talking through the key Power BI components?
Thank you, Marcus. As you can see, Power BI is a very versatile and powerful tool that can cater for everyone, developers, admins, or even end user like us who just want to produce report from Excel spreadsheet or data from SQL server into report, and then combine them into a dashboard and publish it to other users as well, so we can go and share those report and dashboard at the general meeting or weekly meeting with the board or other members in your organizations. You can combine a lot of different type of data connect those report to Excel spreadsheet, CSV, Access, or even those file or documents you store in your SharePoint, and turn them into reports and combine into dashboard. Good news that you can start with Power BI free for non-profit, and the Power BI Pro also have a very low pricing starting from $4.10 per month for each user. The main difference between Power BI free and Power BI Pro is Pro allow you to share and collaborate so much more and more safely than the free one. However, you can always start with the free one and share them among people internally. Now I will show you a demonstrations with Power BI reports. Note that this demonstration uses all the dummy data. Nothing in here is real, so please don't be scared. In this demonstration, we will use housing outcome data and its demographics. I will show you the Excel spreadsheet that I will use in this demonstration. This is a demographic spreadsheet CSV file that I use. You can see it has all the popular or common columns that we usually use in a demographics spreadsheet, such as person ID, gender, age range, and country. When you come to understand a demographics group, you might want to find answer to questions, which age range or which group of user we are serving and providing most benefits to. So let me get started with a Power BI report. What I'm using right now is a Power BI desktop reports. You can easily download it from Power BI website or in Office 365. When I open up the app, the first thing I do is I get the data I need. The most common type of data we usually get for this report is Excel file or CSV file because they are the most common one that we store data in. So in here, I'll get a CSV file. And I will choose a demographics spreadsheet to build report. Once the demographic spreadsheet is loaded in, you can see we can either just load it in or choose to perform some transformation with the data set, but I'm happy with my current data set. So I'll just load it in. Once it is loaded in, you can see that Power BI Desktop allow you to build reports in this view. However, you can also view the data set in this data view, and you can even view the model, which show the connections between different data set you imported into Power BI Desktop. But let's return to the report view. In this report view, the question I would like to answer is what are the age ranges and how many people or clients I'm serving in this age range. Let's start with the pie chart. In this pie chart, I will just drag age range into this legend field. And I want to count or see the percentage of client in this age range. As you can see here, I just quickly by two drag, I get the age range and how many people in this age range that I'm serving in this service. In here, not so clear. I can only see the age range, but I also want to see the count and the percentage of people in each age range. So I will change how I display the details label. So by a few clicks, you can see here, for example, in my data set, I have served 141 clients from 36 to 45 years old, and that's count around 27%. So you can see it's very easy to create a pie chart to show how many clients in each age range. You can,
and I'm just interested. So my board really likes to have donut graphs.
Oh, yes.
Is it easy to change the graphs and into different styles or types?
Yeah, super easy. So you can quickly click on this pie chart, turn into a donut chart, or you can just turn it into a column chart. all very easy and quickly. I also want to pay attention to some specific group that I need to take care more. So I can choose to see the group of client that identify as Aboriginal, for example. So I add this filter and I just click on this tick box, and you can see that I can, in a minute or in a few clicks, sorted out the people that I need to pay more attention to.
So it's easy to actually drill in and look at those that are Indigenous, Torres Strait Islanders, or both. And so we could do that with any of the demographic areas. Is that right? So whether it's country of origin, region where they live, all of those we could create filters for like that. Is that how that works?
Yes, that's definitely how it works. I can add more filter like gender in these demographics, or I can change from this pie chart from age range. I can just change it into country of birth. So you can quickly change how the graph looks and works.
Fantastic.
So now we'll show you another reports that we have spend more times and effort on to make those with the same data set. So if I show you the model view here, you can see I first add the demographics data set and connect it with outcomes and support period data set of those demographic groups to understand, for example, what are the outcomes concern of this demographics group, or how long or how many support periods we need to averagely spend on each demographic groups to help them.
So, Anne, am I right in understanding that most of the clients that you've worked with get this as an extract from their client and case management system, but some of the clients you've worked with actually are able to do a live connection? Is that right? Can you do both with Power BI?
Yes, you can definitely do both. So a challenge in our sector is when we come with data set, it's come from many different sources, because we are limited in finance, but we want to do better. We want to make better impact. So we want to work quick and fast, and then we don't really have time to structure all those data sources. So they come from many different places. One of my clients just collect an Excel spreadsheet from her file server and connect to another CSV file from her SharePoint. So it's all over the place. But once you pull them in Power BI, you can all connect them and look at all these data set from a single view. As you can see here, I can view demographics, outcome, or support periods data set in this one single view. And when you're ready with new data in any of these data sets, you can always click refresh. So you are updated with the latest data from these data sources. Yes, so it's very good that you can always refresh it, but be careful when you refresh your data sources or connect to those data sources, because it needs good the right connections with the data locations, and you need the right admin right to get to those data sources. So what I have just had trouble in here is that I changed the location of my data without letting my Power BI know that. I changed the location of my data source. So always come back and check these small details, so you always get the latest update to your data without any trouble. Back to our report view, you can see that I made reports on demographics of different gender and age range in different locality. So for example, I want to see my client in Launceston and from Australia, for example, I can quickly see it filter down and showed me in this tooltip that there are around 131 male clients, and the one living in Launceston are only 4 of them. When we quickly change to outcome feedback, we can see clients' performance over different stages of our service, from initial assessment to first, second, third review, and the ongoing review afterward. We can filter them by those who did not turn up. Sorry, not really the dead one, but the one who did not turn up, and we choose a date range that we want to see. The main presenting reasons to report as well. There are a lot of different reasons that we include in the feedback report when we met our client, and we can come into this report and understand all those feedbacks that they gave us when they fill in their feedback reports at these services sessions. Same for this goals report. It's just an overview of the case that we manage, whether it is no case management plan or just up to half of them that achieve the goal. You can see that the reason for closing I chose from the previous report is also chosen in here. So Power BI allows you to have a uniform view of all the filter that you have already chosen. Very versatile, but also very powerful as well.
Fantastic, thanks Anne. So I suppose from our perspective, what we wanted you is to do is get an understanding that Power BI is really easy to get started with. You saw Anne, she had an Excel spreadsheet or CSV file. Within, I'm going to say 60 seconds, we had a simple chart with some filters on it that you could start to analyze and understand the data. Then you start to see some of the more sophisticated elements where we joined multiple data sets to bring a holistic report that looked at intake, client demographics, allowed you to filter by reason, and closure at each of the different measurement points through the service. And so it's easy to get started to see what's possible. It's also then you can build on that as you start to understand what information you want in your report and in your analysis. There's a few tips we wanted to share with you when you're starting out, because if you're not familiar with Power BI or understanding activities or outcomes, you can go down a path that gets you confused. So we thought we'd share these with you. The first thing is start using Power BI when you go down this path, and we hope everyone on the webinar does. Start using Power BI with a data set that you are familiar with, so you understand the concepts, you understand what they mean. You know, if you understand the specialist housing program, that's a great one. But understanding the program that you're working with and how it operates and how caseworkers or staff work through that is critical to getting good value out of Power BI. The other thing is start using Power BI with a data set that's easy to access. So that might be a data set in Excel, that might be a data set in an SQL database, it might be a data set out of MailChimp, but whatever it is, it needs to be easy for you to get access so you can learn it and understand it without having problems with access. Some client and case, or a number of client and case management systems don't always allow that ready access if you're not hosting that system on your own servers. The second thing that we wanted to just touch on is that success with Power BI requires buy-in from executive and management, and this is most effective when you're solving a real problem that causes difficulty. So don't come up with a theoretical idea of, oh, wouldn't it be nice to understand how things vary by location if no one really cares about that. You know, think about what's a real question or what's a real problem for your organisation and focus on that. So that might be, we've missed some contractual targets with our funder because our management team and our staff don't know what their targets are on an individual basis or on a location or a regional basis until the financial year's over, and by then it's too late. So let's give them an understanding of what their targets are, how that looks across the whole organisation, and how that breaks down on a team basis. So each of the managers can track that on a month-by-month basis, not just, oh my God, we've got 2 months to go and we're 80% under. The second thing is, another one that we've found organisations are starting to ask a whole lot more about is understanding outcomes. So if we're starting to be clear within our organisation and each of our programs, what outcomes are we trying to achieve? For specialist housing, we're trying to find a safe place for someone to stay that then means that they have that ongoing for a period of time, even after they leave the service, 6, 12, 18 months later, etc. Let's start to measure that, or let's get a proxy for that measure, and then let's show how that changes over time. The other one that we find is always a really interesting question is caseload or workload. So do some staff have a much higher caseload than others, and do they have open cases which haven't had an interaction for 3, 6, 9 months? Managing that caseload together with an understanding of case complexity really helps you think about how do you balance where your effort is going across your teams and across your caseworkers. And putting that information out there and allowing people to understand it can really help them to have very useful conversations with staff, and for you to think about, are we optimising how organisations are managing cases or staff or workload across the different regions and workers. The challenge, or one of the big challenges, is that initially the information you want to analyse, there is a high probability for many organisations that it's not going to give you the results that you trust. And that's because there's errors in the data. What we've found by doing this many times now is that staff often want to care more about spending time with clients than about entering data in an information system. And that means that when you run your reports around open cases or activity hours completed or presenting reason, if you care about that, there may be numbers in there that come out that you go, that's not true. So what we recommend is just understand that there's a chance or that's likely to happen, and then develop a strategy and a monitoring approach to fix it. It's always, our advice is you're always better to fix that problem at the source when the information's entered in the first place. It's never a good solution to fix it after the fact. It's always going to take you more time and more effort, and people forget what the actual real information should have been. You may need to do that once, but understanding that getting information right at the first point in time is critical to getting good data and reports out of it at the end. The next thing is you need resources that might be one or more of funding, expertise, access to staff, commitment to clean up data from caseworkers or people that work directly with clients. The key is recognise that you're likely to need one or more of those resources, And once you've got people excited with some of the things that it could do, ask for those resources. Say, for us to get this to work, this is what I need. And then we can start to that journey on making sure we always meet our targets or communicating our outcomes more effectively with our funders. The more you get those resources, the better off you'll be, and the better your board, your management team, your CEO have faith in what you're doing. We do see organisations try to go down this path on a shoestring without any commitment that data will be cleaned up. And often within 12 months, we find commitment to the concept has fallen away because it's impossible usually for one person in a corporate area or an IT area or a research area to fix all those things. It needs to be an organisational commitment. But get excitement first so that then you get that commitment. If your systems or data is a mess, and hopefully everyone on the webinar, that's not the case, but if it is, you'll know if that's the case, think very carefully about how to navigate the likely pitfalls. Don't try and do everything at once. Pick one system or one area of data where you're going to get value, you're going to get the organisation excited, and that's not too hard to clean up. Tackle the more complex things later if you can. If you don't have access to your data, don't assume it will be simple. We've been engaged by organisations that say, oh, we love this, perfect. And first thing we say is, okay, well, you've got a cloud-hosted client and case management system. We'll need an extract or we'll need direct connect into it. And then they find out when they talk to their vendor that that's not possible. We can't even get started. So if you don't have access to your data, don't assume it will be simple. It might well be, but better to be safe rather than sorry. The other thing is, it's easy to get lost in analysis and what ifs and spend a lot of time wondering. You're always best to start with a hypothesis or a question. Am I hitting my targets? Are my clients better off when they finished our service than when they started? Which clients take the most hours through a service and what is their situation? There's some questions. Starting with those questions and being specific about them drives you to build a report or a dashboard that gives you the answers to those questions and forces you to think about, how do I answer that question? And is it a graph? Is it a chart? What do I need to filter it by? Is it over a time sequence or do I filter by time? That's what allows you. That tip number 7 is probably one of the key things to get value sooner rather than later, rather than spending a lot of time spinning your wheels without getting a whole lot of value. The last one is obviously don't be afraid to ask for help. We always love working with data and we're excited to work with organisations to get those answers. The more that you work with data, the more you can get insight. The more reason we get excited by it is hopefully you'll get more funding because you can communicate your outcomes better, and that's what we love. We're able to help with developing a dashboard for your organisation. Larger organisations might need an information system strategy. You've seen a couple of simple dashboards today. We're able to help with reporting activities, targets and outcomes. Or if you've already got started taking your business intelligence and analytics environment to the next level, we're happy to do any or all of those. What we get excited by, as I just mentioned, is helping you on that journey so you can understand the impact of your services and become bigger and have an even greater impact. I'm going to hand back to Tina for questions and discussions. I will make the comment in case Tina doesn't mention it. We, together with Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand, are in the middle of our technology non-profit sector survey for 2019. And so there's a link there in terms of how taking the survey. We would love everyone who's on the webinar today or watching this afterwards to jump in and complete the survey. It takes less than 15 minutes, and we share the insights freely with the sector. And so you get the insights like we saw today. 50% of organisations are really struggling with their data. So we're hoping that that number is going to reduce next year or in this survey, and it's a whole lot of organisations are doing a whole lot better with their data, understanding their outcomes. But we need your input to tell us, is that the case, or are things changing in a different way? There's also a link there to Power BI. There's a mountain of free videos, webinars, and all sorts of things as well. As we mentioned, the Power BI is free for non-profits. And so jump on and have a go. Tina, I'll hand back to you and stop talking for a minute.
Thanks, Marcus and Anne. I will be sending a link to the survey out to everybody who's registered for this webinar. So please do submit the information through that survey so that we can collect the data and obviously use it to work better with the not-for-profit sector. So that information will be going out with the recording this afternoon. We haven't had any questions come through yet, so please feel free to put it into the questions box on your webinar panel if you do have any questions. Otherwise, we will wrap up in the next minute or so. We'll give you a little bit of time in case there is anything that pops through. But thank you, Marcus and Anne, for doing this webinar today. Very insightful and helpful.
Fantastic, our pleasure. If there is any questions, don't hesitate to stick them in the questions box or comments box, but otherwise, we're also more than happy to help. Don't hesitate to let us know.
Fantastic. There have been a few questions come through about the recording and the slides. I definitely will be uploading this and sending it through to everybody this afternoon. So you'll get a copy of the recording of the webinar as well as the slides that Marcus and Anne have used in the webinar. Okay, so it looks like there's no questions. A lot of people saying thank you and that they've learnt a lot today. So thank you, Marcus and Anne. Was there anything you wanted to add before I wrap up?
No, just please get in and give it a try.
Fantastic. So thanks everyone for joining us today. I hope you've all learnt a lot from the presentation. If you do have any questions that come to mind later or any feedback at all, please send that through to events@connectingup.org and we can address those offline. So don't forget the recording will be available on the website very shortly and a link will be sent to you along with the survey. So keep an eye out on your inbox. Again, thank you for being with us. Enjoy the rest of your day and we look forward to seeing you all next time. Thanks, Marcus. Thanks, Anne.
Thanks, everyone.